Welcome everyone to this final video segment of our course, Introduction to Spirituality. It's been such a wonderful joy to journey with you during this time of the fall semester 2021. I really enjoyed everyone's posts on the discussion board and everyone's involvement throughout the whole semester. So thanks so much for your active participation, and I look forward to this last segment on Pope Benedict XVI's first encyclical Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, the second half of the first part. So we'll look at this together, and then the final chapter of Shoeless, where it gets personalized. In Deus Caritas Est, Pope Benedict says several provocative things in this part one, and one that stands out to me most of all is how he talks about God turning against himself so as to save us. And he says this twice in part one. It's a very provocative thing. How could God turn against himself? And how does this look in salvation history? So in section 10, Pope Benedict writes, God's passionate love for his people, for humanity, is at the same time a forgiving love. It is so great that it turns God against himself, his love against his justice. This is how God appears to turn against himself, his love or mercy, merciful love, against his justice. We don't deserve this salvation. It's not something we earn, but it's something that God gives. He goes on to say, here Christians can see a dim prefigurement of the mystery of the cross. So great is God's love for man that by becoming man, he follows him even into death, and so reconciles justice and love. I think what Pope Benedict has in mind here is the classic Anselmian, after St. Anselm of Canterbury, Christology, the satisfaction theory of atonement, that if God the Son become human, takes upon himself the punishment that makes everyone else whole, in a way that satisfies the divine justice for all that has been deprived of divine justice from the accumulation of human beings' sins. This is just a tremendous encyclical by Pope Benedict XVI, and it's one of my favorites to use in ministry and in teaching. It's so rich, this relationship between eros and agape, that he works out through part one of this encyclical. And then the second instance where Pope Benedict refers to God turning against himself is in section 12, where we read that Jesus' death on the cross is the culmination of that turning of God against himself, in which he gives himself in order to raise man up and save him. We think of Jesus' God-forsakenness on the cross, this very real abandonment of the Son in solidarity with human beings that feel so abandoned often in this life. It's only through this divine solidarity with us and the darkest of our experiences that the divine light shines through, even here. This is love in its most radical form. It is the love of the martyr, the hero, the warrior, the one who lays down his life for the beloved, where the self turns against itself out of love for the other, in a sense, a real sense. Pope Benedict goes on to say, by contemplating the pierced side of Christ, we can understand the starting point of this encyclical letter. God is love. By contemplating the pierced side of Christ, we understand the meaning of God is love. The fiat of God, running parallel to the Marian fiat, let it be done unto me according to your word. God is letting death be done unto him to save those of us who put him to death. This is a God turning against himself to save his beloved children. God is love. A love that can go that far. A love that is that self-humiliating, self-forgetting, self-emptying. The Pope Emeritus goes on to say, it is there on the cross, the pierced side of Christ from which blood and water flow, that this truth can be contemplated, that God is love. It is from there that our definition of love must begin. In this contemplation, the Christian discovers the path along which his life and love must move. Then at the end of section 14, Pope Benedict says another very striking thing. Love can be commanded because it first has been given. We might wonder, how can God command us to love? Because he gives his love for us to love with. Finally, in this letter section, the last section, 18, what do we do with this love? A very simple thing we can do every day. We read, seeing with the eyes of Christ, I can give to others much more than their outward necessities. I can give them the look of love which they crave. So powerful. Sorry if I seem a little somber in this video, contemplative. I'm just trying to contemplate love, reading these things over and thinking about how I've seen that lived out recently in my own life, how we all crave this look of love and for someone to look at us like I love you. Earlier today, someone speeded past me on the road like they were mad I was going too slow. I prayed for them. I prayed a Hail Mary. I said, I just need to pray for this lady. I don't know what's going on in her life. Obviously something that's trying and difficult, and she feels she has to drive like that. Just the way she was driving seemed very aggressive and antagonistic. Maybe sometimes we've all driven like this when we've had a bad day, but definitely see other people drive like this. But in any case, what can we do? I like the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Sweeten the adversity with thanksgiving, with this turning against yourself out of love for the other person, love for the common good, for the greater good. So I want to thank you too for journeying with me through this book, Shoeless. I really love hearing your thoughts from it and what you take from it. This last chapter and epilogue, the final word, kind of bring the narrative up to the present of my wife Megan's life and my own, how we were called to become secular discalced Carmelites and what that meant to us. So we have some of the letters we wrote to our original Carmelite community, expressing our desire to become a part of it. And we talk about the recent, what would be about 7 years of our lives when we were living in Ohio, and we felt moved to live closer to the land, kind of in the country, and got horses and all these things. And it's true. There's something about nature that helps to lead us into contemplation. There's no doubt about it. Our humanity really is enmeshed in this natural order of creation. We shouldn't think of ourselves so much as these isolated beings within the world, in a sense, always apart from the world, but we're really living in a symbiotic relationship with the rest of the natural world and these other creatures and different forms of living beings. Um, Even though we are as we read in Gaudium et Spes, the Second Vatican Council document, we're the only creature that God created for our own sakes, the only creature that is able to know and love our Creator. But still, our life is very entwined in the whole order of creation. So when we get in nature, when we live close to the land, we come back to this instead of always surrounding ourselves in unnatural environments or removed from all the miraculous things going on with seeds, with weather patterns, with cycles of life, um, and just all of this that expresses the Paschal mystery writ large across the cosmos. Um, so I guess to conclude um, with this last part of Shoeless and the epilogue and things, that being said, we ended up in Detroit through a kind of unexpected way, and then once we moved to Detroit, a few months later, the pandemic, the virus pandemic, the COVID pandemic hit, and it's still kind of going on a bit, and it's been very difficult, very challenging, and I knew when moving to Detroit um, that there was a challenging history, recent history of the city, and thinking about the meaning of the name Detroit from French, Detroit, that means a narrow constricted passageway, or a strait, Strait, a strait, like a little constricted way, especially in reference to the Detroit River that runs from Lake St. Clair to Lake Erie. But I think of it too spiritually. This home of Unleash the Gospel and a real concentrated effort at the new evangelization. The Holy Spirit wants to be active, especially in those most narrow passageways in this world, namely human hearts, and just trying to get in and dilate what's going on and overcome the sclerotic arteries and vessels that tend to happen in our spiritual lives. So I can say that up to the present, I was just talking with a young man yesterday, in fact, going on a hike. It was actually in Denver, Colorado, on Beaver Brook Trail, beautiful trail, Sunday morning. And he's a millennial generation guy, a bit younger than me. And I told him, I said, this is what I have to say to the millennial man, that life in following Christ is a constant discernment. It's not like we discern for a while and then land somewhere and we never have to discern anymore. It's like a constant discernment, what's going on, no matter what our vocation. Like St. Philip in Acts of the Apostles, the Holy Spirit just lifts him and leads him here and there, talking to the Ethiopian man, unpacking the meaning of the book of the prophet Isaiah. The man asks for baptism, and Philip baptizes him and then is whisked away by the Spirit again. And as Jesus says in the Gospel of St. John chapter 3 in his conversation with Nicodemus, the wind blows where it wills. We don't know where it comes from, where it's going. So it is with everyone who is led by the Spirit. And hopefully this is us at the end of this course in spirituality, that we are docile. We have a readiness of heart in relation to God the Holy Spirit, and we make of ourselves like a sail, that he would fill that sail with the full force of the will of God the Father, according to the constellation of meaning light that lights up by God the Son, the Logos, and how God the Most Holy Trinity remains at work within us, and that we are ready, we're vigilant to go where he sends us, to do what he wants us to do. Even if we've already made that permanent election, we know it's his will for us to stay in it until we die. But how does it look? Do we move here or there? Where is he calling us in ministry? All these different things. Are we ready to go and to adapt and to give ourselves to the point of abandonment without remainder? It's an incredible summons of sacrifice. So I thank you for sharing this course with me, and may you be completely receptive, like our Blessed Mother Mary, to the will of God the Father unfolding in your life to the end.